The wooden stairs groaned beneath Harold's weight as he ascended into the attic. Sunlight slanted through the narrow window, catching dust motes in golden shafts. The air was dry, thick with the scent of old newspapers, forgotten books, and something faintly metallic. Harold hadn't been up here in years, not since his wife Marjorie had passed. He shuffled past boxes of Christmas ornaments and faded photo albums until a small unmarked cardboard box caught his eye. It wasn't there before, or maybe it had always been, buried beneath years of neglect. Scribbled faintly on the lid in red marker were the words, "Do not open." Curiosity pushed past caution. He reached for the box with trembling hands and placed it on a nearby trunk. Peeling back the flaps revealed an old flip phone, silver, scuffed, and inexplicably warm. It vibrated in his hand as if it had just received a message, yet the screen was already lit. There was no battery indicator, no signal bar, no welcome screen. Just one video paused at the first frame. He opened it. The video began to play. A dimly lit room appeared on screen. A boy, maybe 12 or 13, sat on the floor, knees pulled to his chest, rocking slightly. His eyes were wide, lips moving in silent panic. No sound. The timestamp in the corner read 000. It never changed. Harold furrowed his brow. The boy looked familiar, not in the way a celebrity might or a passing resemblance to a neighbor's kid. It was deeper than that. A tugging sensation in his chest, recognition without context. The boy's mouth continued to move, silently begging or warning or crying. Harold leaned closer. The footage was grainy, but too clear for something so old. The camera never moved, the lighting never shifted. Just the boy and that endless silence. He closed the phone. The screen went black. A beat passed, then it lit up again on its own. The video resumed at the exact same frame, looping silently. Disturbed, Harold sat on the attic floor and stared at the phone. His mind raced, trying to rationalize. Maybe it was a prank, an old student playing a trick. Maybe someone had left it there, knowing he'd find it. But why? And how was the battery still working? He stood, knees creaking, and took the phone downstairs. On his kitchen table, he tried everything, turning it off, removing the battery. But the back wouldn't open. There were no screws, no seams. It was as if the phone had no interior at all. He considered calling someone. But who? His friends were mostly gone. His daughter lived across the country. And what would he even say? "I found a haunted flip phone in my attic." Still, the boy's face lingered in his mind. Something about the eyes. Harold sat in his recliner, flip phone clutched tightly, the video replaying again and again. The boy rocked. The lips moved. The silence screamed louder than sound ever could. Before we dive deeper into this chilling mystery, make sure you subscribe for more real-life inspired stories that blur the lines between memory, myth, and the unknown. He hardly slept that night. When he did, he dreamed of the attic, only it wasn't his anymore. The floorboards were newer, the window gone. And in the corner sat the boy from the video, watching him with an expression Harold couldn't name. The next morning, Harold sat up in bed and glanced toward his nightstand. The flip phone was there, glowing. He hadn't left it there. The light of morning didn't change the feeling. If anything, it deepened the wrongness. Harold sat at his kitchen table, coffee untouched, eyes fixed on the flip phone still playing the same video. The boy was still there, rocking, whispering soundless words, eyes pleading through the screen. Harold reached out and closed the device again. Click. Darkness. He set it down and stood, stretching his aching back. He walked away, went to the sink, rinsed a dish. When he turned around, the phone was glowing again. Same frame, same boy. He stepped forward and picked it up. "What do you want from me?" he muttered, voice hoarse. The phone, of course, didn't answer. By noon, he'd tried placing the phone in a drawer, wrapping it in towels, even leaving it out in the garage. Each time he returned to it, the screen was still playing. The video never paused, never skipped, never stopped. Always the same. A silent scream from a place beyond understanding. Frustrated, Harold dug through his drawer of chargers. He found one with the right port and plugged the phone in, just to see. Nothing happened. No charging symbol, no sign of power intake. The phone didn't need it. It never had. He stared out the window for a while, watching wind play through the maple trees. His mind drifted to old headlines, vague memories of childhood warnings. There had been a boy, hadn't there? Years ago. A missing child. It was something the neighborhood whispered about, the kind of rumor that never made it to official records. Harold poured himself another cup of coffee, and brought the phone to his study. He placed it on the desk, beside an old magnifying glass, and leaned in. The boy's face twitched slightly. It was the first time the video had changed. Harold stared, heart pounding. Had he imagined it? Was the boy reacting to something? He replayed the footage in his mind. Frame by frame burned into memory. No, this was new. The boy had never moved his head before. And now, for just a fraction of a second, his eyes had flicked left. He grabbed a notepad and began writing down every detail. The boy's expression, the wall behind him, the faint light source. The timestamp still hadn't changed, still frozen at 0. The silence weighed heavily, pressing against the edges of the room. Harold reached for his landline, intending to call someone, anyone to confirm he wasn't losing his mind. But who would believe him? He settled back into his chair and remembered the name. Eli. Eli Waters. A boy who'd gone missing in 1998, just 2 blocks away. Never found. No leads. Harold had been teaching then. He remembered the school shutting down for a day. Police at every door. A mother crying in the parking lot. Could this be Eli? The resemblance was vague but unsettling. The same curly hair, the wide brown eyes. The boy on the screen looked older than 12 now, closer to 14. But that could be time-distorting memory, or something else entirely. Harold picked up the phone again. "Is it you?" he whispered. The screen flickered. For just a second the image inverted. Colors reversed, shadows deepened, and then returned to normal. The boy didn't react, but Harold's hands trembled now. Something inside the device wasn't mechanical. He could feel it in his bones. He stood, paced. His mind screamed for logic. He thought of magnets, tricks of light, preloaded videos. Maybe someone had edited the footage to look old, to loop perfectly. Maybe it was a sick joke. But the battery, the unnatural glow, the feeling in his chest, that wasn't explainable. That night, Harold didn't try to sleep. He sat by the phone, notebook in hand, recording everything. Every flicker, every blink, every breath the boy didn't take. And when the house finally fell silent, Harold swore he heard it, a faint hum in the walls. Not from the phone, from the attic. By morning, Harold had made a decision. He needed help. Not from the police. They'd laugh, or worse, take the phone away. No, he needed someone who understood technology, someone younger, someone who might be able to make sense of this strange relic that defied logic. He wrapped the flip phone in a dish towel and drove into town. The roads were quiet, flanked by rows of rust-colored trees. Autumn had arrived like a whisper this year. The breeze carried with it a chill that made Harold shiver, though he wasn't sure if it was the cold or what he carried in his pocket. Lena Carter's shop sat between the laundromat and the florist. The hand-painted sign above the door read, "Carter's Tech and Repair." She'd opened the place 5 years ago after moving back from Boston. Harold had seen her around, fixing laptops, soldering wires, always polite. She reminded him of his granddaughter, who rarely called. The bell above the door jingled as he entered. Lena looked up from a half-disassembled tablet. "Hey there, Mr. Whitman. What can I do for you?" Harold hesitated, then carefully unwrapped the phone and placed it on the counter. "I need you to look at this. Well, just watch." Lena picked it up, brow furrowed. "Wow, haven't seen one of these in a while." She flipped it open. The video played. Her smile faded almost immediately. "That's creepy." Harold nodded. "It never stops. I've tried everything." Lena turned the phone over in her hands. "Where's the battery cover?" She tried pressing at the back, but it wouldn't budge. "No screws?" "Nope." She brought it to her workstation and connected it to a universal adapter. Nothing. No recognition, no charging signal. She pulled out a data extraction cable and plugged it in. Still nothing. "It's like this thing doesn't exist," she muttered. Harold sat quietly watching her. "Can you pull the video off?" "I don't even think this thing has storage," she replied. "I mean, physically it should, but there's no file directory, no operating system that I can find. I've never seen anything like it." She tapped a few keys on her laptop, running diagnostic tools. "This video, it's not stored in any readable format. It's not .mp4 or .avi, nothing. It doesn't even have metadata. It's just playing. From where? I don't know." They watched the screen again. The boy rocked, lips moving in that silent loop. Lena leaned closer. "He's mouthing something. Looks like 'let me out,' maybe?" "I've been trying to figure it out too," Harold said quietly. Lena exhaled and pushed back from the desk. Okay, this is officially creepy. What is this? Where did you get it? My attic. It was in a box I didn't recognize. Lena's eyes narrowed. Has the video ever changed? Harold paused. Yes. Once. Yesterday. His eyes moved. Just for a second. They both stared at the screen in silence. Then Lena's phone, sitting on the counter, lit up on its own. The screen was blank, just white noise. She grabbed it, turned it off. Okay, that's never happened before. Harold stood slowly. I think whatever's in this phone isn't just a file. I think it's reaching out. You're not crazy, Lena said, her voice lower now. This is beyond tech. I don't know what this is. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the boy. Not just on the screen. She saw him in corners behind doors in the reflection of her phone. Once she swore she heard him whispering through her Bluetooth speaker, even though it wasn't connected to anything. When she woke up at 3:07 a.m., the flip phone was on her nightstand. She hadn't brought it home. The following day, Harold returned to Lena's shop. She looked tired, pale beneath her freckles, dark circles under her eyes. The flip phone sat on the counter between them like a sleeping animal, quiet for now, but full of latent threat. I didn't bring it home, she said before he could ask. I figured as much, Harold replied. It's doing what it wants. She nodded slowly. We need to find out who this kid is. They started asking around, quietly. Harold still remembered a few of his old students' families. Lena had connections through her shop, repairing old laptops, hearing neighborhood gossip. They began with simple questions. Did anyone remember a boy going missing? Someone named Eli. Most shrugged, looked uncomfortable, and changed the subject. Others stiffened when the name was mentioned. One woman, a retired librarian, blinked rapidly and muttered, "We don't talk about that," before hurrying back inside her house. It became clear that something had been buried, intentionally. At the town archives, Lena found a single newspaper clipping from 1998. Local boy missing, feared dead, no photo, Ed. Just a name, Eli Waters, age 12, and a vague description, last seen riding his bike near Birch Lane. No follow-ups, no updates. It was like the story had vanished along with him. Harold stared at the article. This is him. It has to be. Back at Lena's shop, they watched the video again, this time with focused intensity. Lena recorded it with her own phone, slowed it down frame by frame. His lips are definitely forming words. I think he's saying I didn't know, or maybe they didn't know. Then she paused. Look, behind him. That wallpaper. Harold squinted. The wall behind the boy had a repeating pattern, faded but clear enough under close examination. That's not just any wallpaper. That's the old Wexler house. My wife and I visited once before it burned down. It had that same god-awful wallpaper in the upstairs bedroom. Lena's eyes widened. The Wexler place. That house burned down in the 40s. That's right, Harold said slowly. But that wallpaper, it was unique. They had it shipped from France. Only one like it in the entire state. So how is it in a video of a boy who went missing in 1998? They sat in silence. The next day they visited a group of local teenagers who hung around outside the gas station. Lena asked them directly, "You guys ever hear of something called the static room?" The boys exchanged glances. One laughed nervously. "That old urban legend." "What legend?" Harold asked. The tallest boy, maybe 16, shifted on his feet. "They say there's a room in town, no one knows where, that if you find it, you can hear people who aren't supposed to be there anymore, people who got lost or taken. You hear them through static, phones, radios, even microwaves. They say it's cursed. People still talk about this," Lena asked. "Online, yeah, there's a thread on a forum. Most think it's made up, but every now and then someone posts a new story. Same keywords, static silence, video loops, missing time." That night, Harold lay awake thinking about the static room. His attic had never made noise before, not like this. The hum had returned, faint but constant like a distant electrical buzz. It wasn't in the walls, it was in the air itself. Just past midnight, he climbed the stairs, phone in hand. He opened the attic door. The hum grew louder. Boxes were just as he left them, but the light was wrong. Too dim, more grey than gold. Shadows stretched across the floor like veins. He stood there, the flip phone glowing softly in his palm, and stared at the place he thought he'd known. Somewhere beneath the silence, he heard something new, a breath. Harold awoke with a start, his heart thudding against his ribs like a drum. The dream had already begun to fade, but fragments clung to him, walls too narrow, staircases that twisted upward into the sky, and always the boy, watching. Not watching him exactly, watching something through him. The attic had changed. He was sure of it now. Not physically, not in the walls or the layout, but something about the air, the light, the texture of silence had altered. The hum he'd heard before had intensified. Now it felt alive, like breath just beneath the surface of reality. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at the flip phone. The video still played, the boy unmoving again, rocking in his loop. But Harold noticed something new. The frame was slightly different than the day before. An object in the corner. A sliver of metal? A hinge. He rewound and rewatched, pausing on a single moment. Yes, there. It looked like the corner of a trapdoor. His fingers trembled as he reached for his notepad. He drew the frame, every angle, every shadow. Then he closed the phone again. This time it stayed off. Not dead, just waiting. Harold didn't mention the dream to Lena when she stopped by later that morning. She looked worse than the day before, red eyes, shaking hands, like she hadn't slept at all. She placed her phone on his table, face down. "I'm done with this," she said flatly. What happened? It started ringing at 2 a.m. Not just once, 3 times. Same number. No caller ID. When I answered, it was me, my voice. But wrong, slower, echoing. And then it just said one word. What word? Down. They sat in silence. The flip phone, still closed, seemed to pulse with awareness. Harold finally spoke. "I think it's showing us something piece by piece. Like it wants us to figure it out, but not too fast." Lena shivered. "Like it's enjoying it." Later that day, Harold walked through town alone. People greeted him kindly, as always, but there was a tension behind their smiles, a slight delay in their responses, a hesitation when their eyes lingered on him too long, as if something clung to him they didn't want to acknowledge. He passed the old stone church on Maple Street and paused at the bulletin board out front. A faded flyer was pinned in the corner, nearly hidden beneath local event postings. He pulled it loose and unfolded it. Missing, Eli Waters, age 12, last seen September 19th, 1998. Below the typed details was a photocopied image. It was the boy, no doubt now. Same eyes, same slight cleft in the chin, same desperation. It hit Harold like a punch to the chest. He stumbled back home, flyer in hand, and opened the flip phone again. The boy stared back, but something had changed. His mouth wasn't just moving, he was clearly gesturing now. Not random flailing, but directed. One hand lifted toward the screen. His lips repeated a phrase again and again. Harold pressed pause, zoomed in as much as the screen would allow. The boy was pointing, not at something behind him, but at Harold, or more specifically through him. That night, Harold dreamt of Marjorie for the first time in years. She stood in a long hallway lined with attic doors, each marked with a different year. She opened one. Inside was a boy in the corner, and on the floor Harold's notebook. He reached out to her, but she shook her head. "You already knew," she whispered. When he awoke, the notebook lay open beside him. A new sketch had been added. He didn't remember drawing it. It was the same hallway from his dream. It happened at exactly 4:44 a.m. Harold sat up in bed, heart pounding. The house was silent. No wind, no creaking floorboards, just that thick, static-laced quiet that had become familiar. The flip phone sitting on his nightstand was glowing again, but this time it wasn't playing the video. It was ringing, not vibrating, not flashing, ringing. A deep, old-fashioned tone, like something from a rotary line, pulsed through the room. Harold reached for the phone, hands stiff with dread. The screen flashed a single word, "Listen." He opened the flip. For the first time it spoke. A voice, warped, distant, layered in static, slid out like breath through broken speakers. "Help." That was all. One word, spoken slowly, deliberately. Then silence returned. The screen dimmed. The video resumed. The boy was back, but now his face was different. Still silent, still rocking, but his lips no longer moved. He simply stared at the screen, unmoving, unblinking. Harold's skin crawled. He called Lena. She answered on the second ring. "I heard it too," she said, voice hoarse. "Not the phone. My dog went crazy, barking at my phone like it was going to attack him. And then I heard something through the speaker, like whispers." Harold closed his eyes. It said help. There was a long pause. "That wasn't a recording," Lena said finally. That was live. That afternoon they met again in her shop. She'd set up her tools, her screens, all her tech knowledge focused on one ancient device that refused to follow any rule of logic. "I ran a signal trace," she said. "Nothing. No towers, no Bluetooth, no Wi-Fi. But something activated the speaker. It's like it's only active when it chooses to be." Harold sat down slowly. "Oh, this isn't just a message, it's a presence." They watched the video again. The boy hadn't moved. He was still staring now, not at the camera, but through it. "I think he sees us," Lena whispered. Then the lights flickered. Just once. A brief pulse. Every bulb in the room dimmed, then returned. Harold looked around. Lena froze. Her computer monitors stayed off for a moment longer than they should have. "Did you feel that?" she asked. "Like the room blinked." Lena walked over to the breaker panel, checked every switch. All normal. When she returned, she looked shaken. "I've repaired 1,000 devices," she said. "Burnt out drives, liquid damage, even boot loops. But this isn't a tech problem. This is something else. And it doesn't want to be understood. What do we do?" She looked at him, eyes tired. "We get rid of it." Harold's breath caught. "Destroy it?" "I think we should. It's changing us. I haven't slept in days. I feel watched. My apartment smells like ozone. I hear buzzing even when it's not there." Harold hesitated. "But what if it's a call for help?" Lena's hands clenched. "What if it's bait?" They sat in silence. That night, Harold left the flip phone on his kitchen table and tried to sleep. Just after midnight, the static returned. Soft, insistent, like breathing through broken glass. He walked into the kitchen. The phone was off. For the first time since he'd opened it, the screen was black. He reached for it cautiously, touched the hinge. It snapped open on its own. The video resumed. But now there was a second figure in the background, just a blur, behind the boy. Motionless, shadowed. Harold's voice was a whisper. "What are you showing me?" The boy didn't move, but his expression changed, just slightly. A trace of relief. Then, without warning, the lights cut out again. And in the pitch dark, the phone kept playing. Lena called him the next morning, voice firm but shaken. "We need someone else, someone who can access records we can't." Harold hesitated. "The police. Not the whole department. Just Drew, my cousin. He's local, quiet, smart, doesn't ask stupid questions. If anyone will believe this, it's him." Harold agreed. They met at Lena's shop that afternoon. Officer Drew Keller arrived in uniform, tall and broad-shouldered, with tired eyes and the kind of posture that said he'd seen more than he wanted to. "I got your text," he said to Lena. "Didn't understand half of it. You said, a phone that won't die?" Lena nodded. "Just watch." She handed him the flip phone. Drew flipped it open, brows furrowing as the video began to play. "What the hell?" he muttered. They explained everything, the attic, the video, the changes, the voice message, the figure in the background. He listened, arms crossed, saying nothing until they finished. "Sounds like a bad movie," he said finally. "But you're both sane, and I know you wouldn't waste my time." He stared at the phone again, then looked at Harold. "You said the boy's name might be Eli Waters." Harold nodded. "Disappeared in '98. "I remember," Drew said. "I was in middle school. The whole town went on lockdown. They searched every yard, every shed, never found him. People stopped talking about it fast." Drew promised to check the department archives. "There's stuff the public never saw. Maybe it'll connect." The next day he returned to Lena's shop with a folder tucked under his arm. "I found something," he said, laying it on the counter. It wasn't a missing person report. It was a murder case. "September 19th, 1998, Drew said. Same day Eli vanished. A man named Carl Drayton was found dead in his home. House burned down the next morning, ruled accidental. But here's the strange part. Drayton had no known enemies. Quiet guy. Lived alone on the edge of town." Harold leaned in. "And?" Drew flipped the file open to a crime scene photo. A living room charred to ruin. But one detail remained untouched. A wall, with wallpaper. The same wallpaper as in the video. Lena stepped back, eyes wide. "That's the Wexler house." "No," Drew said. "This was Drayton's. But here's the kicker. Drayton bought the house in 1979. The records list no renovations, no design changes. But that wallpaper? It was discontinued in the 40s. They sat in stunned silence. Drew continued. "And one more thing. Drayton's autopsy report says his body was found with burns, but there was no fire damage on him directly. Like the flames weren't from this world. Harold rubbed his temple. We're circling something that's been here longer than we thought. Drew nodded. There's a connection between Eli, Drayton, and this place. Lena's voice was barely a whisper. It's not just a looped video, it's a doorway. Drew pulled out one last photo, an old black and white image from the town archive. It showed a house from the 1940s, familiar, slanted roof, ivy along the brick. A plaque above the porch, Wexler Residence. Harold stared. That's the one. That's where Marjorie and I visited once. Drew flipped the photo over. House burned down in 1947, electrical fire, no survivors. Location. He unfolded a town map and pointed to a small wooded lot at the edge of the neighborhood. Same plot Drayton lived on. The room went quiet. It wasn't a coincidence. 3 tragedies. One place. One pattern. Lena finally spoke. We need to go there. Harold nodded, but his voice was low. We'll need the phone. Whatever it's showing us, it's not done yet. The woods behind the town hadn't changed in decades. Trees thick with moss, ground soft with leaves, air heavy with the scent of rot and pine. The lot where the Wexler house once stood was barely marked, just a patch of uneven earth, a few blackened stones, and nature reclaiming everything. Harold, Lena, and Officer Drew stood at the edge, staring at what remained. This is it, Drew said quietly, holding the old photo for comparison. Same chimney base, same tree line. Harold held the flip phone tightly. It had remained silent during the drive, the screen dark, dormant, but as he stepped forward it lit up again without being opened. Lena gasped. It knows we're here. The 3 moved cautiously toward the ruins. The foundation had mostly collapsed into the soil, but parts of it were still intact. They found what might have been a stairwell, now just a depression in the ground framed by crumbling stone. Looks like the basement, Drew muttered. We'll have to climb down. Lena hesitated. Is this safe? No, Harold answered, but it's necessary. Inside the depression, the air grew colder. Shadows fell strange, as if the light hesitated to touch the space. They reached the cellar floor overgrown with roots and lichen. The flip phone screen flickered again. The boy appeared. Only now the background had changed. No longer just a wall. The room was larger. A cellar, symbols drawn in chalk, a metal chair in the corner, and on the wall behind the boy a window. Lena raised her flashlight and swept the beam across the ruin. She stopped suddenly. There, she said. That shape in the dirt, those stones, it matches the window in the video. Harold knelt beside the stones, fingers brushing moss and grit. He was here. Drew scanned the walls. Look at this. He pointed to carvings in the stone, barely visible runes or letters, symbols etched deep. They matched the symbols in the video, Lena confirmed, frame by frame. We found the room, she said. The one in the video. The phone vibrated sharply in Harold's hand. It flipped open on its own. New footage began playing. This time the boy wasn't alone. A shadow moved behind him, tall, undefined, not shaped like a person. It didn't move naturally, more like a glitch in reality. It flickered, pulsed, folded inward and out again. Lena's breath caught. That's what was behind him before. It's clearer now. Drew raised his phone to record it, but the moment his camera focused on the screen, the shadow vanished. What was that? He whispered. Harold spoke slowly. A witness, or a jailer. Suddenly, Lena's compass, clipped to her bag out of habit, began spinning wildly. No wind, no magnetic source, just erratic, frantic motion. Then the air changed. The static hum returned, louder than ever, not just in the phone but in the space around them. The cellar seemed to vibrate. The flashlight in Drew's hand flickered and died. They stood in near darkness, only the flip phone's dim glow casting light. And then, the phone shut off. Not just paused, not playing, fully dead. The glow vanished. The silence returned. Harold shook it, pressed buttons. Nothing. It's never done that, he whispered. Not once. Lena took a step back, visibly rattled. Did we wake something up? Drew turned to climb out. We shouldn't stay. As they emerged from the ruins, the forest felt colder, the sky dimmer. The world not quite the same. Back at the car, the phone remained dead. No power, no light. Just a silent, lifeless shell in Harold's hand. They drove back in silence, but deep down each of them knew something had shifted. The phone hadn't turned off because it was broken. It had turned off because it had shown them what it wanted to. And now, It was waiting. The days that followed were blurred and uneasy. The air felt heavier. Clocks in Harold's house ticked irregularly. His kitchen clock would skip minutes ahead, while his living room mantel clock lost time, seconds vanishing like breath. He tried to ignore it, but when the sun rose twice within an hour, he knew something had broken. Reality no longer held firm. The flip phone remained off, cold, but Harold carried it with him, every hour of every day, as if it still pulsed faintly in his pocket. Lena called him one evening, her voice taut. "Something's happening at my apartment." "What kind of something?" "I found furniture in my spare room I don't remember buying. A rocking chair, an old mirror. I live alone, Harold." The chair was moving when I walked in. Silence passed between them. Then she added, "It all feels older." Harold's stomach twisted. "My attic changed again." "Changed how?" "I went up there this morning and found a box I'd never seen. It was labeled 1952. Inside were letters written in handwriting I recognized as mine, but from a decade before I was born. "You're slipping too," she whispered. They met the next morning at Harold's house. Drew arrived soon after, his face pale. I walked into the station kitchen and found a radio on the counter. It was playing music from 1947. No one else heard it. When I touched it, it sparked. They gathered in Harold's living room. The flip phone still wouldn't respond. "I think we opened something," Lena said. "Time isn't stable anymore." Harold stood and motioned for them to follow. He led them up the attic steps, creaking underfoot. At the top, the space had transformed again. The floor was no longer wood. It was black and smooth like charred stone. The window was bricked over. Dust hung in the air like ash. And in the corner, where boxes used to sit, there was a desk, a child's desk. Drew stepped forward cautiously. This wasn't here last time. Harold picked up a notebook resting on the surface. It was his name etched on the cover, but the entries inside weren't his handwriting, they were drawings, sketches of the boy from the video, repeating page after page, each time the same blank expression, same posture, but with growing detail until the last drawing showed the boy not alone. He was standing behind Harold. Harold dropped the notebook. Then the flip phone buzzed. All three turned. It lit up in Harold's pocket. He pulled it free. The screen showed a new scene. No video, just a hallway. Old wallpaper, a row of doors. At the end, a mirror. The timestamp still read 00:00. Lena stared. "That's what I saw in my dream last week." Harold nodded slowly. "I've seen it too." Then the video began to change, slowly morphing. In the reflection of the mirror, a boy appeared. Not Eli. Smaller, blonde, eyes wide with fear. Harold stepped back. "That's me," he said, voice breaking. "That's me at 10. Drew blinked. "Are you sure?" Harold nodded. "I had that shirt, that same scar on the chin, but I don't remember ever being there." "Maybe you weren't," Lena said gently. "Yet." The attic grew colder. The light shifted. Time bent. The three of them stood in a place that felt familiar and foreign at once, like they'd been pulled sideways, not in space, but in memory. The flip phone's screen turned black. Then one word appeared in glowing white text. "Return." Harold whispered, "What do I need to return to?" The attic said nothing, but something inside him stirred, something buried, a forgotten moment, a locked door in his past, now slowly creaking open. The next day, Lena arrived at Harold's door carrying a new phone, her backup Android, wiped clean, fully charged. "If we record the flip phone," she said, "maybe we can transfer the video. Try to isolate the source." Harold nodded, uncertain. "It might not let us." Drew joined them minutes later. They set up the devices in the attic, where the space remained warped, still part memory, part decay. The child's desk was gone now. In its place stood a mirror, tall and clouded. The flip phone lit up on its own. This time, there was no boy, just the hallway. The same one they had all seen in dreams, doors lining each side, each marked with a number. At the far end, the mirror again. Lena hit record on her phone. The new footage played in silence. But then something strange happened. The Android screen flickered. The reflection in its recording wasn't matching what was shown. "It's looping," she whispered, "but not the same way. This isn't just copying, it's replicating." She stopped recording, checked the file. What she saw made her drop the phone. The video had already begun looping, exactly like the original. Even the timestamp read 000. That's not possible, Drew muttered. It's a brand new device. Harold picked up the android carefully. The footage played on its own, smooth and seamless, identical in behavior. It's not just a video, he said. It's a signal, a transmission. Lena stared at her phone in horror. It jumped, like it wanted to survive on something newer. Drew leaned against the attic wall, eyes wide. So it's not a recording at all. It's a presence, looking for a host. Harold nodded slowly. And now it has one. The air thickened. The attic buzzed faintly. Then Harold's flip phone shut off again. The android continued playing. The hallway grew darker in the footage. One of the doors swung open on its own. Lena took a step back. I've seen that door before. In a dream, I walked toward it but never opened it. Do you remember the number? Harold asked. She nodded. 17. They looked back at the phone. The open door bore a number. 17. It's showing us what we avoided, she whispered. Drew checked his wristwatch. The time was stuck. We're not synced anymore. Look at this. My phone says 9:42. My watch says 1:03. Lena checked hers. Another time. Harold didn't bother looking. He could feel it inside. Something had unlatched. The attic, the video, their memories. They were no longer in step with the world outside. This is a cycle, he said. A loop we've walked into. The phone showed the boy stuck in his moment. Now it's doing the same to us. Drew looked around. How do we break it? Lena didn't answer. She stared at the android phone. The boy had returned. But this time, his eyes weren't pleading. They were knowing. He mouthed a single word, over and over. Come, come, come. Lena stepped forward. He's calling us. Not all of us, Harold said quietly. Me. They turned to him. He took a deep breath. I've felt it since the beginning. This isn't just about Eli. It's about what I've forgotten. Something buried deep, something tied to this place. Drew stepped closer. You don't have to go in. I think I already have, Harold replied. Years ago. Maybe in a way I didn't understand. Maybe in a moment I forgot. The attic shimmered briefly, like heat off pavement. The flip phone buzzed again. The screen showed a figure now, standing in the hallway, back turned, walking slowly toward the 17th door. It was Harold, or someone who looked just like him, decades younger. Lena whispered, It's not just showing us the past. Harold nodded. It's showing us what's coming. The attic no longer felt like Harold's. It had become something else, older, deeper, like a layer of memory unearthed and still breathing. The walls didn't echo sound. The floor didn't creak. Time didn't pass in the same way. The mirror in the corner pulsed faintly now. Not with light, but with reflection. The hallway from the video appeared inside it, stretching out endlessly behind the glass. Door 17 was open. Harold stood facing it, the android phone in his pocket still playing the loop. The flip phone remained silent. Lena stepped beside him. You don't have to do this. Harold shook his head. I think I already did. A long time ago. Drew stood at the threshold of the attic, arms folded, jaw tight. We should destroy them, both phones. End this now before it gets worse. Lena looked back at him. And what if that traps him in there forever? The boy, Eli. What if this is his only way out? We don't even know if he's real, Drew said. What if we're being pulled into something designed to trick us? Harold turned slowly. He's real, and so is this place. It's not a trick. It's a tether. Something that was buried, forgotten, hidden, but not gone. Lena's voice dropped. You think it's connected to you personally. I know it is. He walked to the mirror and stared into the reflection. On the other side, the hallway stretched on, but it wasn't just physical. It was filled with layers of sound, like whispered echoes trying to surface. A lifetime of forgotten voices. I saw him again last night, Harold said. The boy. But he wasn't Eli this time. He looked like me. Younger, standing alone in a field, holding a box, a flip phone. He buried it in the dirt. Lena's breath caught. You think you put it there? No. I think I was made to put it there. Drew's voice was low. That sounds like madness. Harold looked at him. Then help me make sense of it. Go back to your records. Find anything you can on a kid in the 50s who vanished from this area. Anything weird. Anything familiar. Drew didn't move. His eyes flicked to Lena. If we let him go in, there's no guarantee he comes back. Lena stepped forward, gently touching Harold's arm. There's always a choice. You can still walk away. Harold stared into the mirror. I think I've been walking away from this my whole life. The attic pulsed. A wave of warm, breathless stillness swept through the space. The mirror shimmered, then stilled. The reflection now showed the boy, Eli, standing by door 17. He looked older, pale, hollow-eyed, but his mouth moved again, slowly this time. "You're almost here." Harold turned to Lena. "Promise me something." She nodded. "If I don't come back, don't follow. But don't destroy the phones." "Not yet." Drew stepped closer. "Why?" "Because someone else might need them, and they'll be looking for the same door." Lena looked away, her throat tight. "This feels like goodbye." Harold smiled, faint and warm. "Maybe it is. Maybe it always was." He turned toward the mirror. The glass no longer reflected the attic, only the hallway now. Door 17 glowed faintly in the distance. The mirror began to hum. Then slowly it began to open, not shatter, not swing, but unfold like a doorway into air. Lena reached out instinctively. "Harold, wait." He looked back one last time. "Tell my daughter I finally remembered." Then he stepped forward and vanished. The attic fell silent. The phones went black. And for a moment, there was nothing but the soft sound of wind returning to a room that had just forgotten the shape of the man who'd lived there. There was no sensation of movement, no step between the attic and what came after. One moment Harold stood in front of the mirror, and the next he was inside it, though inside didn't feel right. It wasn't space in any ordinary sense. The hallway stretched endlessly. Pale wallpaper peeled in curling strips. The air was heavy with age and something else, grief, maybe. Sound didn't travel. His footsteps made no noise. The doors stood evenly spaced on either side, each with a brass number. Most were closed. 1, 17, remained open ahead. He approached, pulse steady. He was not afraid. Not exactly. More like he was walking towards something that had waited too long to be named. Inside door 17, the room matched the one from the video. The boy was there. He sat just as Harold had seen him, knees pulled to chest, arms wrapped tightly, rocking slowly. But now he turned as Harold entered. Their eyes met, and the loop broke. For the first time, the boy truly moved. He stood shakily as if he hadn't done so in years. His mouth opened, and this time sound came. "You came." Harold's voice was quiet. "Who are you?" The boy hesitated. "You knew me once." Harold stepped closer. "Are you Eli?" A pause. "I was." Something about the way he said it told Harold everything. The boy had been Eli once, but not only Eli. He was many voices, many children, all caught in the same impossible loop. Harold looked around. "Where is this place?" The boy pointed to the ceiling. "Between." The word rang strangely in Harold's ears. Not above, not below, not heaven, not hell, just between. "I was taken," the boy said. "So were others. We were echoes, waiting. But you had the key. The phone." The boy nodded. "It showed you what we needed, and you listened." Harold's throat tightened. "What do I do now?" The boy reached out and touched Harold's chest. A warmth spread outward. Calm, steady, deeply human. "You let us go." Behind the boy, the walls began to dissolve. Not with destruction, but relief, like a long-held breath exhaled. Faces began to appear. Children, dozens, some only partially formed. Some clearer than others, all watching Harold with a shared understanding. He had found the thread that bound them. He had come back. "I don't remember everything," Harold whispered, "but I think I saw you when I was young. I saw something I wasn't supposed to." "You did," the boy said, "and it stayed buried, waiting for you to return." A sound echoed through the space, soft, melodic, like wind chimes in a breeze. The children turned toward it. A door at the end of the hallway glowed gently. "It's time," the boy said. "We're ready now." Harold watched them walk, one by one, toward the light. None looked back. None were afraid. They were going home, wherever that was. The boy remained last. He turned to Harold. "You can come too." Harold stepped forward, but then paused. He thought of Lena, of Drew, of his daughter, who would one day wonder why her father vanished, of the house, now empty, but no longer haunted. "I think I need to stay a little longer." The boy didn't argue, he just smiled. "Then thank you." Harold reached out. They touched hands, and the boy shimmered briefly, then faded. The light dimmed, the hallway receded, and Harold was alone again. Only now, the silence wasn't cold. It was peaceful. Back in the attic, the flip phone rested alone on the floor. Lena climbed the steps slowly, heart pounding. There was no sign of Harold, only the phone glowing gently. It opened on its own. The boy's face appeared for a moment, then vanished. And in his place, just for a second, Harold's face flickered onto the screen, smiling. Then it faded to black. Lena sat alone on the attic floor, the flip phone resting between her knees. It hadn't made a sound since Harold vanished. No static, no video. Just a quiet hum in the air, like a frequency too low for most to hear, but impossible to ignore once felt. She hadn't cried. Not yet. Something in her heart insisted Harold wasn't gone, not in the way people usually disappear. His presence still lingered, warm and steady, like a candle kept burning just beyond the veil. The phone lit up again. This time there was no hallway, no boy. Just a single word glowing on the screen. Thank you. Lena blinked back the sudden sting behind her eyes. Then the image changed again. A brief glimpse, only a second or two, of Harold standing in a sun-drenched field, wind in his hair, smiling gently. And beside him, the boy, Eli, no longer pale or ghost-like, whole, at peace. Then the screen faded. That night, Lena returned home, the phone tucked safely in her bag. She placed it on her nightstand and watched it for hours, waiting. It didn't move, but she did. She finally slept. And when she dreamed, it was of Harold standing on a quiet path beneath golden trees. He didn't speak. He just nodded. Across town, Eli's mother, Marlene Waters, stirred in her sleep for the first time in years without tears on her cheeks. She dreamed of a small hand taking hers, warm and familiar, guiding her through a garden they used to walk when he was little. When she awoke, she didn't remember the dream, but her heart felt lighter. At the station, Drew Keller typed up a report he'd never submit. It contained no formal incident, no crime, no evidence, just names, dates, patterns, and at the bottom a question he couldn't stop asking: how many others are still waiting? He visited the ruins again, alone this time. The lot where the Wexler house once stood had grown strangely quiet. No birds, no wind, not even the usual hum of power lines, just stillness. But the oppressive weight he'd felt there before was gone. He didn't stay long. Back in town, Lena launched a small website. She called it Signal Lost. It was simple, just a digital archive of missing persons, unexplained disappearances, and strange phenomena from small towns across the country. People began submitting stories, photos, recordings. A few even mentioned flip phones. Others described silent videos, frozen timestamps, voices whispering through radios and screens. The stories varied, but they all shared a tone. Grief twisted into signal, memory stretched into echo, and in the center of it all, Lena placed Harold's story. She didn't name him. She didn't need to. The people who needed to know would understand. One morning, a week after the attic, Lena found something on her doorstep. A box, unmarked. She brought it inside cautiously, hands trembling just slightly. Inside, another flip phone, identical to the first. It was already on, and playing a video. She stared at it, heart pounding. This one was different. The video showed a small room, clean, bright, shelves lined with notebooks, a desk near the window, a framed photo on the wall, Lena, smiling beside Harold, taken months earlier. In the center of the room stood Harold himself. Older, yes, but solid, present. He looked directly into the camera. He smiled. Then he faded. Lena sat in silence for a long time, phone still in hand. It wasn't fear she felt. It was purpose. There was more to be done. She placed the new phone beside the old one and opened her laptop. More stories were waiting. Weeks passed, but the town didn't forget. People who had never spoken of Eli Waters before began leaving flowers by the school gate, quietly and without prompting. Some left notes, others drawings. There was no official vigil, no newspaper article, but the energy had shifted, subtle but undeniable. Lena walked the streets daily now. People approached her cautiously at first. Some asked about Harold. Others brought her stories. A boy who vanished in 1963. A girl in 1975 who walked into a storage shed and never came out. A teen from 2002 whose last phone call ended in static, all forgotten until now. The website grew faster than she expected. Dozens of messages arrived every day. Some were clearly fake, creepypasta-style fiction, but others carried the weight of something real, something felt. She categorized everything: Patterns emerged, timestamps stuck at 0, rooms without shadows, phones that glowed without power, the word between repeated like a whisper across decades and locations. One submission chilled her more than the rest. A man from Wyoming had received a package in the mail. No return address. Inside a flip phone identical to hers. It powered on immediately. The video showed a hallway, a boy rocking. Then, for one frame, Harold, smiling. She wrote back, but never received a reply. Lena began wondering if the signal itself had intelligence, if whatever force inhabited the phones was selecting people, nudging them toward buried truths. Drew had left the force. Quietly, he didn't tell many people why. Officially, it was health-related. Privately, he told Lena he needed to understand more. "I don't know what we stepped into," he said during one of their walks. "But I know we weren't the first, and we won't be the last." They kept in touch, trading leads and theories. Drew started gathering local newspaper archives from as far back as 1900. Dozens of faces, dozens of vanishings, none ever solved. Lena focused on what she could do: share, preserve, document. The site now had sections: missing persons, audio clips, recovered footage, timeline anomalies, and one page called The Attic, where Harold's full story lived. She updated it weekly. People read it, people felt it. Then one night, just before midnight, a soft chime sounded from her desk. Not from her phone, from the new flip phone. It had remained silent since the video of Harold. Now it played again. This time a new scene. A bench in a garden. Spring. Wind, moving gently through tall grass. Birds. Harold sat alone, head tilted back, eyes closed. He looked content. Lena smiled softly, tears touching her lashes. A moment later, the screen went black. She whispered, "Thank you." The next morning, someone knocked on her shop door before opening hours. A woman in her 40s stood there holding a small velvet pouch. "I think this is yours," she said. "It was on my porch." Inside the pouch, another flip phone. Lena stared at it. "Have you played it?" The woman nodded. "It showed me my brother. He died when I was a child. But he looked happy." "Do you still have the video?" "No," the woman said. "It disappeared after, like it had done its job." Lena handed her a card with the site address. "Share your story," she said. The woman nodded, eyes damp. "I will." That night, Lena updated the archive. She wrote, "It's not about solving every mystery. It's about honoring them, letting them echo into the world they left behind. These signals aren't glitches. They're invitations. Not all will answer, but some will. And when they do, they'll understand the truth Harold found, that some doors aren't meant to close." Just pass through. Then she hit publish and waited. The nights grew longer, the air colder, and yet something in the town felt warmer than before. There were no more unexplained power surges, no static hums in the walls. The attic in Harold's house remained empty, undisturbed, a quiet space filled with gentle light each morning. Lena kept both flip phones in her shop, locked in a glass case on a high shelf. She didn't check them every day, but she always felt their presence, like silent guardians or perhaps unfinished conversations waiting for a reply. The archive continued to grow. People reached out from all over the country, sometimes the world. Each story added another thread to the web of memory that Harold had first uncovered. Still, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that the cycle was not over. One rainy evening, as she was closing up, she found herself staring at the case. The original phone glowed softly, screen coming to life on its own. She felt a chill, not of fear, but of anticipation. A new message had appeared. Press play. She hesitated. Her heart pounded with old anxiety, but also curiosity, and something she could only name as hope. She unlocked the case, picked up the phone, and pressed the button. The screen flickered, then showed her reflection. Only just behind her in the image, she saw Harold's familiar smile. For a moment, it felt like he was right beside her, encouraging her, reminding her that all mysteries start with a question and the courage to seek an answer. Then, the video shifted. This time, the camera followed a path through a familiar attic, one she hadn't seen since childhood. Dust motes swirling, sunlight catching the grain in the old wood, boxes stacked just so. At the far end, a small door, one she had never dared open. Lena watched, transfixed. The camera approached the door. It swung open. On the other side, Golden light spilled into a vast space, filled with memories, voices, laughter, even a few tears. Faces she'd loved and lost, some she had never known. It was an invitation, not a command. A promise that some doors, once opened, could never truly be closed, that even loss leaves behind a trace, a signal waiting for someone brave enough to listen. As the video looped, Lena realized she wasn't afraid anymore. She placed the phone gently back in its case and turned out the lights. She would share what she'd seen. She would keep listening. For every ending, there is a beginning. For every lost voice, a chance to be heard. Before you go, if this story has moved you, or if you want to uncover more mysteries that stretch between the worlds of memory and reality, make sure you subscribe now, so you never miss the next signal. And if you're curious what other secrets may be waiting just beyond your screen, click on the video suggested right here and continue the journey with us. After all, some stories never really end. They just wait for someone new to press play.